Welcome to City of Keene in Focus. Thanks so much for listening. Hello, and welcome back to our next episode of City of Keene in Focus. I am Asa Kramer, and I am joined today by Rebecca Landry, our Deputy City Manager, and Dan, I'm going to say your last name wrong, Dan Langell.
Very good.
Oh, great.
Nicely
Okay. Our City Assessor. So, hi, guys. How's everyone doing this morning?
Very good. Good morning to you.
Yeah, great.
Good morning, Asa. We had quite the start to our day today, didn't we?
We did. Yes, that was exciting.
So a few members of the council have been planning to get together downtown to see how fast they could ride their bikes on a small section of sidewalk to kind of get a feel for how that might impact the safety of bicyclists and pedestrians in the downtown after the reconstruction project is over. And we had a lot of fun with that.
Yeah, so a couple of councilors, Councilor Greenwald and Councilor Hawes, as well as Mayor Khan came. There were a couple of e-bikes there. There was some analog bikes, and they rode up and down a little proto bike lane just to see how it maneuvered, to see how fast, felt safe. So yeah, that was an exciting way to start a Friday morning.
It was really interesting. There was a good variety of bicycling, and I think it was also good to see how active our downtown is at 8 o'clock in the morning. That's really great. Lots of people coming in their cars, parking for a few minutes, grabbing their coffee or their bagel, and then people walking and jogging and walking the dog and pushing the stroller. So it was a good opportunity to see what that would be like, and I do think that Councilors Greenwald and Haas, as well as Mayor Khan, have some good information to bring back to the council about what that felt like on their bike on the sidewalk. I want to thank the Public Works team for setting that up. I'm sure there were people driving by wondering why we had all those cones on the sidewalk and what in the world we were up to, but the Public Works team was awesome to help support that test.
So who got the fastest time?
We'll let the council share that information.
Great, yeah. So last night was City Council, and Rebecca, you were stepping in for the City Manager.
Right. Elizabeth is at a conference up north.
Last night was a pretty straightforward City Council meeting. What are, three things from City Council last night that you think the public would be most interested to hear about?
Okay, let's see. I think, first of all, we had the 79E public hearing for the application that's coming from Zach Luce, and that's something that Dan can fill us in on this morning. We also had, one of the highlights of last night's meeting was honoring Charles Redfern. So Chuck has been instrumental in supporting the trails system, and last night what we celebrated was the naming of the South Bridge, which is the pedestrian and bike bridge that is the trail extension that goes over Route 101. That is now dubbed the Charles Redfern Bridge. And the amount of work that Phil Jones and other people at the state legislative level, as well as locally, put into making that really special and honoring Chuck was really cool. I was really glad to be there last night for that. I will say the third thing was we've had a number of opportunities to recognize Patty Little for her 40-plus years of serving the city, and last night there was a resolution adopted for her retirement. So that was bittersweet, but I would say definitely on the list of top three last night.
Definitely. Yeah, that's great. I saw Patty the other day. She stopped into City Hall, and she seems like she is very much enjoying her first couple weeks of retirement, and we know that Terry, who is our new city clerk, is doing an awesome job. So, yeah, great stuff. So, Dan, Would you talk to us a little bit about 79E and what was discussed last night at Council?
Sure. So, last night was a public hearing, so it was an opportunity for the public to weigh in on this project. And 79E, it's been a program that we've used on 4 different properties now, and it's a great way to redevelop or to use underutilized properties, especially in the downtown. We have a lot of historic old brick buildings, and a lot of times the second floors aren't being used, or they need significant amount of repair in order to bring them up to a use that can be used today. And so Zach, this is the second time he's used this program. He's got another great project ahead of him. He's going to convert the second floor into a beer garden, which I think will be a great, active place for the downtown. And what it is we provide a little bit of tax relief for a set amount of years based on the improvements made to the property. So he'll continue to pay taxes on the base value of that property. But any value that he adds related to this project, he gets a discount on for a number of years. We do this is because it's usually so expensive to modernize these buildings. And so this is an opportunity for the public to kind of help benefit a project like this.
Sounds like a really good way to encourage people to develop a little bit. And a lot of the buildings downtown are super cool, but they're older, right? So
Absolutely.
they might need a little bit of TLC. So
Yeah, and it's some of the stuff that's not as fun to renovate. It's the electric, it's the heating systems, it's modernizing them so they're energy efficient. And that's a big proponent of one of the public benefits is energy efficiency, which Zach has done a great job at his building.
hearing Zach talk about his plans for the project last night was really interesting. Sounds like he's proposing a beer garden with a lot of local connections and celebrating some art, which is really cool.
And he's going to tie it into our sister city, Einbeck, Germany, and have some beer
Right.
from there, which I think is a nice little touch.
Yeah, I love that.
Definitely looking forward to that project coming to downtown Keene. I really appreciate that Zach was talking about how that's going to be a family-friendly environment and a beautiful space. If you haven't seen the inside of that building, it's absolutely phenomenal. So we're looking forward to that. And I just, for the public's benefit, want to mention that 79E is basically a policy of the City Council by resolution that is from state enabling legislation. So the City of Keene, through the City Council, opted to establish a policy. So the 79E program in Keene lists 8 or 9 public benefits, and as long as the project meets at least one of those public benefits, then it's eligible for approval by the City Council for up to 5 years of no taxes on the incremental value of the improvements. And that's really a great way to incentivize continued development and support economic development in Keene.
And just for the public's context, can you give some examples of previous 79E projects?
Sure. So we have the known as the Burl House, which is a bed and breakfast down on Washington Street. That was I think a single-family home that was in pretty rough shape. And the owner of that property turned it into a beautiful bed and breakfast now that is welcoming people from all over. We've had a project that's on Marlborough Street, 310 Marlborough. They took an existing factory building there and kind of modernized that, so it's now home to a number of businesses. Also, there's a future project in place that they're working on now to provide 3 floors of residential apartments. That'll be underway. So that's all a 79E project.
Is there anything else that you feel like the public ought to know about 79E or this project in particular, or anything else that you want to add about that today?
Only if there's any downtown business owner or that owns a property that they're thinking of renovating, or they have ideas to expand their business, modernize their building, to come in and talk to us, and we'll see what help we can offer.
Cool, great. Well, it sounds really exciting. So, looping back again to last night's City Council, is there anything else that you feel like ought to be shared from that?
We have some good things and one unfortunate thing.
Oh, man.
But I wanted to mention that we did have a water main break yesterday, and by the time this podcast is published, this will be long resolved. But I wanted people to understand how this process works, really. We had a water main break on Thursday, May 15th in the morning. Public Works crews had it resolved and water pressure restored by mid-afternoon, which is great. But it happened in an area of Keene, which on Lower Winchester Street, south of Route 101, where our system sort of dead ends once it reaches a certain point. And so it creates some challenges when it comes to repairing those types of issues. And so we ended up putting in a precautionary boil water notice for about 200 customers. And that was just for an abundance of caution. We'll know today what the results of the water tests are that were performed last night. So that was unfortunate, but also I really want to thank Public Works for how quickly they responded to recover that. I certainly feel for any of the residents who were impacted by that, but glad for a quick turnaround. So I wanted to mention that. If anybody has any questions about that, definitely call our Public Works Department, 603-352-6550. Then we also have another interesting thing from our downtown project. By council demand, the Public Works Department created samples of colored or textured concrete that's being proposed for the downtown. They are still working on finishing up those samples, but they have invited the City Council to come down to Public Works and take a look to get a better feel for what the proposed surface materials might look like for the downtown. Sidewalks, bike lanes, that kind of thing. And one of the things I'd like to talk about today is parking.
Okay.
We have some new parking options that many people are not yet aware of. We had a relatively large downtown employer leave the downtown. They're still in Keene, thankfully. And that opened up some parking in our Wells Street lot. So where's the Wells Street lot? So it's the parking garage on Wells Street behind Hannah Grimes. And we have opened up 3 or 4 new options for parking there, including permit-only parking. There's even a downtown employee $1 a day parking option, which is on the lower level, which is in high demand for that parking garage. We've opened up some free parking for the public after 4 o'clock in the afternoon, as well as other permit options that we've opened up for people who want nighttime-only parking, so overnight parking. We'll certainly continue to look at that and tweak it as necessary to meet demand, but I'm really glad to say that we opened up quite a few parking options downtown.
That's great. Thanks for sharing that information. I think that will be really valuable for people who work downtown to know about that. And I believe it's covered, right?
The downtown employee parking is covered for those spots that were just recently made available. There are 2 businesses that came to the city council because they wanted permission to use fireworks this summer. And we're really appreciative to both of those organizations. We've got the Swamp Bats and Jim Capo and Jimmy Tempesta for their First Responder Appreciation Community Day. We really appreciate these folks and what they do for the community and their willingness to be flexible with the conversations that are being had around fireworks in Keene.
And we are hoping for good weather for both of these events. I think last year the First Responders event was a little rainy that day, so we're keeping our fingers crossed for beautiful weather for them.
We also talked last night about a new jet hangar that's going to be developed at the airport. So jet aviation is a growing industry, not only because of COVID, but certainly this is one of the outcomes of COVID, that people were turning towards more private jet use. And so this is something that we're glad to see at the airport. There's a good amount of interest. This is just one example. And so we're looking forward to having a new jet hangar at the airport. So we are getting close to the end of our budget review meetings, our internal budget review meetings with the City Council, Finance, Organization, and Personnel Committee. We've been through most of our departments. We are still going to be reviewing airport, library, fire, police, Parks and Rec, and facilities, and the public is welcome to attend those meetings. So there is a public hearing for the budget coming up on June 5th at 7 p.m. in council chambers at City Hall. We look forward to people coming and participating that way. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about was the master plan process. So the master plan process is an 18-month-long project, and the community development team has been meeting regularly, and you wouldn't believe the amount of energy and effort that's been put in to this project. So on June 3rd, there's going to be a future summit at Heberton Hall. It starts at 5 o'clock. I know that they're hoping that people can come. There's going to be childcare available for this meeting. There will be some appetizers and snacks, which is great. And they're going to review all the work that's been done to date and get sort of an early preview of what the master plan is coming together to be. It has been a monumental effort. The community has been so good to come out and support this. We are going to look at all 6 pillars, which are how the content of the plan is focused. We'll really get an opportunity to both celebrate the master plan and the master plan process and continue to receive input from the public on what they care about for Keene going forward.
Yeah, tons and tons of work has gone into the master plan, and I just want to really commend the community for really stepping up and saying, these are the things that we care about, these are the things that we want to focus on in the next 10 years, 10-ish years for Keene. And so I just think that's really cool. Like, a lot of communities are not as civically engaged as Keene is. I think that's something to really celebrate. I do want to mention, coming up on May 31st, over at Station 2, the Keene Fire Department is going to be participating in a controlled burn training. The state is going to be coming in and doing some training with a couple different fire departments, training on controlled burn and brush fires, and that will be behind 110 Hastings Avenue. So we just want to put the word out there. You might see some smoke, you might see some flames. It's a controlled training. There's no reason to be concerned, and there's lots of fire apparatus and personnel there to make sure everything stays contained and that the departments can participate in a really good, valuable training. So I just want to put that out on people's radars. That's going to be May 31st.
Thank you, Asa. We've done that before, and we're really fortunate to be able to train for those kinds of things in a controlled environment. And if you think about it, our fire department, they jumped through the ice at Robin Hood Park into the very cold water to work on rescue training. They jumped into the dam at Esquillet River Park to do some rescue training there as well. Can you believe what the fire department is doing and how intense their training is? It's just incredible.
Our fire department members are awesome. They have such good attitudes. I've had the opportunity to attend some of these trainings to film them, and these team members have the best attitudes about it. These are burly trainings, physically and mentally. And I remember during the thin ice rescue training, one of the firefighters got out of the water, and it was cold. It was so cold that day. He got out of the water, and I mentioned to him, I was like, this is tough. This is tough training. And he just had a big smile on his face, and he said, it's fun. So they have really, really good attitudes.
We should probably also mention that Memorial Day is coming, so May has 5 Thursdays, and that means that the 5th Thursday of the month, there's no council meeting, no finance committee meeting, and so for city staff, we celebrate that a little bit as long as we don't have a special meeting scheduled. We like having a week with no night meetings, or at least one less night meeting. However, Memorial Day is coming up, and so we'd like to wish everyone a happy Memorial Day. There will be the Memorial Day Parade, and that's going to take place starting at 10 a.m. The parade will proceed from Gilboa Ave up Main Street to Washington Street, where it will conclude at the Recreation Center in Fuller Park, where there will be a ceremony that will start sometime between 10:45 and 11. It's a really great event to remember people who have served, and we look forward to this every year.
Is there anything else that either of you would like to talk about today?
No, I'll just do one plug for Flash Vote. So we have been putting out Flash Vote surveys. This is a survey platform that allows us to survey the public in a more scientifically accurate fashion than just random surveys. So the idea of Flash Vote is people sign up in advance to agree to take surveys if they are able, and then they don't know the topic in advance. So by having this panel generated before we send out the surveys, we get a broader perspective in the responses, which is exactly what we need. And we have over 500 people signed up for our Flash Vote panel. We usually get between 200 and 300 responses when we send out a survey, and we're thrilled about that. And honestly, I think other communities are asking us how we're doing it, and so that makes me a little proud. So anyway, if anybody's interested in signing up for our Flash Vote surveys, you can go to flashvote.com/KeenNH, or it's right on our website, keennh.gov. We have done 2 surveys recently. We have 2 more in the hopper coming out, and we really would appreciate it if people would sign up. The surveys take less than a minute to complete. They're only 4 or 5 questions, and they can be done by email. They can be done by phone.
As I do every single episode, I'm going to just encourage you to go to keennh.gov/jobs and check out the job opportunities there. There's a lot of really good ones. So I encourage you, or if you know anyone that's looking for a new position, keennh.gov/jobs.
Thank you for saying that, Asa. We have a part-time AV tech who was a Keene State student but just graduated. So Logan, we are grateful that you're here with us, and we congratulate you on your graduation.
Yes, absolutely. That's a big accomplishment.
And with all these local graduates, whether high school graduates, college graduates, in Keene or regional, please look at our jobs. Asa and I are trying to film people to give the public a better perspective of who works for us and how long they've been here. Asa videoed somebody the other day who's been here for 20 years, and he started here as an intern when he was a student at Keene State. So we have a lot of really good job opportunities, and honestly, they're career opportunities. You can get your foot in the door, and then there are opportunities to advance within the organization. There's one more thing I wanted to share. I keep saying one more thing. Keene will be hosting the first ever Regional 3CMA conference come June. So that's going to be, I believe, mid-June. I want to say June 12th. And that's a great opportunity for anybody who's involved in city or county communications to come and learn from experts on all things communications. We're going to be talking about accessibility. We're going to be talking about search engine optimization. We're going to be talking about going out to the community rather than expecting the community to come in order to get information out and in. So we're looking forward to doing that. That's going to be hopefully a first event that leads to many future events.
All right. Well, if that's it, I think we'll wrap up for today, and we will look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks for listening to City of Keene in Focus. We'll see you next time.